Hashtag second period jackets have made a return as they allow 4 goals in the second frame of last night's game to lose 5-1 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're going to be breaking down last night's game. We're going to be looking at just exactly what went wrong and also where in the world is Joonas Korpisalo's game. All that and more on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day or your first watch of the day, depending on where you are. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and also on the YouTube. So if you would like to watch me have a breakdown about the Pittsburgh Penguins instead of just listening to it, then head on over to YouTube. Make sure you subscribe over there. I've got a really fun giveaway at the minute. When I hit 100 subscribers, I will be giving away a commemorative Rick Nash puck from his jersey retirement a couple of weeks ago. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you go and hit the subscribe button because it helps me out and it gives you the chance to win cool stuff. So today, unfortunately, we got to talk about last night's game. I know I don't really want to either, but they played it, so we should probably talk about it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what went wrong. Spoiler alert, it was mostly the second period. The second period Jackets have made a return, and I wish they'd stayed gone. And we're also going to talk about Joonas Korpisalo and exactly what is going wrong with him at the minute. But we'll start off with last night's game. 5-1 loss. Pittsburgh Penguins in PPG Paints Arena. The Blue Jackets haven't won there since like 2015 or something stupid. It started off super well. Well, it started off okay. Gus Nyquist scores on the power play, 5v5. The even strength play was not great in the first period, but the Blue Jackets held on. Joonas Korpisalo was really great in the first period, I thought. And then, like I say, Gus Nyquist breaks through. That's his 16th of the season. Who else with the assist but Jacob Voracek? That's his 42nd assist, and I think like 35 of them are primary assists. It's nuts. But the Blue Jackets are up 1-0, which is not what I expected, but I will take it. Second period, however, is kind of where it all goes wrong. Radim Zohorna scores his second of the season. I feel like his first of the season was against the Blue Jackets as well, which seems rude, honestly. Jake Guentzel hits 30 goals on the season because, of course, he does. It feels like I don't think he scored against the Blue Jackets thus far this season, but he did score twice tonight, which I believe gives him 10 career goals against the Blue Jackets in the regular season in like 17 games, which is rude and unfair, and I expect better from a Jake, honestly. We are a Jake-friendly team here, and it feels like he's bullying me specifically. So, boo Jake Guentzel, my nemesis. Long-time listeners will know this. Brian Rust scores. This is all before the 8-minute mark of the second period, by the way. And then Jake Guentzel scores again. His 31st of the season makes it 4-1 Pittsburgh with 6 minutes left in the second period. But by that point, honestly, the damage has been done. Evgeny Malkin adds a power play goal with about 12 minutes left in the third period. But the Blue Jackets have they show some signs of life in the third period. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But for the most part, just domination by the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I think this is a game that shows the difference between a playoff team and a non-playoff team. Honestly, the Blue Jackets have kind of been hanging in there. We've talked about it a lot the past couple of weeks, especially. They're not out of the race yet, but honestly, like at this point, pushing to make the playoffs, getting in as that 8th seed, sure, it's possible, but what will that do apart from another first-round exit and ruining our potential top 15 draft pick? Because that's kind of where we're on trend for at the minute, is a top 15 draft pick, which, again, not the worst thing in the world. it is frustrating to see the Jackets who can't seem to decide whether they want the draft pick or the playoffs. But honestly, at this point, it helped that Washington also lost last night, so they've remained 13 points out of a playoff spot. They've got a game in hand over Washington. The Blue Jackets have, I think, 18 games left, if I can do math properly. So again, it's not technically out of the realm of possibility that they make the playoffs. But honestly, at this point, like, if I'm Kekalainen, if I'm Brad Larson, I am like, right, okay, well, obviously we want to win, but at this, like, what's the point? At this point, we're only hurting draft stock, and I don't see the point, honestly. So in a minute, we are going to talk about the game in a little bit more detail. We're going to look at exactly what went wrong. We're going to look at, the usual stuff, special teams, which actually were not terrible in this game. But first, I want to tell you about a brand new sponsor, and that is HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh has a bunch of delicious and nutritious recipes. You can warm yourself up from the inside out with limited time recipes inspired by cozy classics from around the world, like beef tenderloin and cheese fondue, or miso sesame shrimp and bacon ramen. That last one sounds really good. And HelloFresh offers the flexibility you need to easily customize your order online or in the app. You can change your delivery day, your food preferences, your planned size. You can even skip a week if you need to. I have been a HelloFresh user on and off for a few years now. I'm a big fan of it. I love the fact that you get exactly what you need, so you don't have like half a head of cabbage sitting in your fridge for the next 3 weeks because you bought too much cabbage and now you're stuck with it. HelloFresh doesn't do that. It gives you exactly what you need and exactly how much of what you need. It's perfect. So go to hellofresh.com/locked-on16. Use code locked-on16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. Once again, that's hellofresh.com/locked-on16. Use code locked-on16 for up to 16 free meals and free gifts. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day. Whether you are a first time listener or a regular listener, I appreciate you, or a first time watcher or a regular watcher. Welcome on in. I appreciate you as well. So let's talk in a little bit more detail about the game because it sure did happen. There's honestly not a ton that I think the Blue Jackets could have done about this game. I think it was literally just they were outmatched. Like, I don't think they played badly necessarily. They just didn't play as good as the other team, which is extremely terrible grammar, but I'm sticking with it. They were outshot 37-27. The Penguins had 60% of the face-offs, which is the Blue Jackets used to be good at face-offs. I wonder what happened. I mean, I know the answer is probably that Boone Jenner is injured, but surely that can't be the only reason that the Blue Jackets can't win a face-off to save their lives. Special teams I actually didn't hate. Obviously, Gus Nyquist got a power play goal, and they killed 3 out of the 4 Pittsburgh power plays. So, all things considered, for once, the special teams were not my issue. My issue apparently was the 5v5 even strength second period, which, I mean, we haven't seen it as much this year, but we've seen it in previous years. The second period Jackets where they can't seem to score a goal in the second period or stop goals from being scored. The Penguins outshot the Blue Jackets 20-7 in that second period, and again they scored 4 goals, so they scored on literally 20% of their shots in the second period, which is it's just not good enough. We're going to talk about goaltending in a little bit because I have some things that I want to say about that. The Blue Jackets did kind of push back in the third. They outshot the Penguins 13-5, but Tristan Jarry's a good goalie. I don't know again how sustainable that's going to be once you get into the playoffs because they appear to be playing him literally until the wheels fall off. I believe he leads all goalies in minutes played. That might be wrong, but he's up there. He's leading the league in wins right now. He has 32 of them. He has played 50 of the basically 50 of the 64 games that the Penguins have played so far this season, which is, again, that just kind of feels unsustainable. I think goalies should probably cap out at about 50 wins, 50 games in a season. And apparently the Penguins have decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to play Jarry until he falls apart like one of those wooden mannequins with the pins missing. So again, it seems to be working out for them thus far. I thought Jarry was really good last night. Obviously, 26 saves on 27 shots. Like that's goaltending that wins you games. I don't necessarily think the Blue Jackets got goal lead. I just don't think the Blue Jackets were very good, and also Joonas Korpisalo was not as good as we needed him to be, honestly, which is something we are going to talk about in a minute. I do want to finish off talking just a little bit more about the Blue Jackets specifically, and how the game kind of shook out for some ice time, because we're kind of in why not let this might as well happen. Patrick Laine's ice time has gone down, which I don't necessarily agree with. Bjorkstrand is not getting a ton of ice time. I believe the forward with the most ice time in this game was Sean Corrali, which is, again, sure, this might as well happen. The Corrali, Nyquist, and Roslovic all had over 17 minutes. Oh, and Jake Voracek, excuse me. Those four players all had over 17 minutes of ice time. And meanwhile, you've got, Patrick Laine is getting less ice time than Cole Sillinger, who I love, but he had a terrible game. I don't know. The ice time situation is weird to me, and I don't like it. Andrew Peake continues to lead the team in ice time. He had more ice time than Zach Werenski, which again is just extremely baffling to me. Actually, I am mistaken. Vladislav Gavrikov led the team at ice time by 4 seconds. So again, deeply, deeply weird. I like Vladislav Gavrikov a lot. I think Andrew Peake has really come into his own as a good young defenseman. I don't understand why either of them are getting more ice time than Zach Werenski. It's extremely baffling. And hopefully it's not a trend that we continue to see, although I don't have super high hopes. But we're going to talk about a different position in just a minute. We are going to talk about goaltending because we need to talk about Joonas Korpisalo. But first, I've got to talk to you about Built Bar, because Built Bar is delicious, it's nutritious, it is a protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar, and if you haven't tried them, you really need to. And here's the best bit of the entire Built Bar range. They've got these things called Built Puffs, which, if you haven't tried them, you are missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. They are a protein-infused marshmallow. They are fluffy. They are marshmallowy. They are covered in 100% real chocolate. They've got a brand new Built Puff flavor coming out, which is brownie batter, which just sounds incredible. Honestly, my personal favorite is the banana cream pie puff, but it sounds like brownie batter might overtake that as my new favorite, and honestly, it could be your new favorite as well. All Built Bars are low calorie, high protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carb, low sugar. You can't lose with a Built Bar. They are good for you. They are tasty. Like they're so good. But here's the best bit. If you go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, you can get 15% off your order. Once again, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. So we need to talk about goaltending. And it's kind of a weird conversation to have right now, because obviously with Elvis Merzlikins out, Joonas Korpisalo is kind of the only option that the Blue Jackets have. I don't know that they can recreate the magic that JF Berube did for them earlier in the season, which is a shame because he was fantastic for them. Um, and is something I talked about on Monsters Musings, actually, which is the Cleveland Monsters podcast I co-host with Dina Weinheimer over at Phil Pass Hockey. We talked a lot about JF Burubay and how he is struggling in the NHL, but then turns into a god in the NHL. And honestly, sometimes goalies are weird like that, but I don't see that being something that will happen again. Honestly, so I think for better or worse, Joonas Korpisalo is the option going forward, and I think this could be a good thing. Um, and here is why, and it's something that we've talked about on the podcast before, but Joonas Korpisalo is one of those goalies that is better the more he plays. If you play him every 2 weeks, he's going to be bad, and I think that is why his numbers have been down this season. If you look at his numbers proportional to how many games he plays, the more games he plays, the better his stats are. Which I mean, that's kind of how math works, but also he's just one of those goalies that the more he plays, the better he is. You get some goalies that the less they play, the better they are. Some goalies are designed to play every 2 weeks and they can jump in and be really great. Korpisalo is not one of those goalies. He is a very rhythmic goalie. That's not quite the word I want, but he is goalies are creatures of habit. They're creatures of routine. And I think when he was, for better or worse, the starting goalie, I think he was good. But then, Elvis Merzlikins has kind of come in, taken his spot, and I think his game is suffering for that. And I think that's why he hasn't been very good this season, is because he's only playing like half the games that Merzlikins is playing. If we look at the Blue Jackets goalies this season, Joonas Korpisalo only has 7 wins on the season. I think he has 11 losses. So he currently has a record of, he is 7-11 this season. He's only played 22 games versus Merzlikins has played 42 games, 22, 15, and 3. It's unfortunate, but Merzlikins is the goalie of the future. Korpisalo has. And it's tough. It's a vicious circle for Korpisalo, because the less he plays, the worse his stats get, and the worse his stats get, the less they're going to play him. So he was kind of fighting a losing battle here already. If Merzlikins has to be out for any amount of time, then I could see Korpisalo kind of jumping up and making his game better because he's playing more. I could see him looking more like the goalie that we thought he could be full time. Again, just by dint of getting to play more, getting to get more reps in, getting to get that rhythm, that routine going. If that doesn't happen, then I think the Blue Jackets can say goodbye to a playoff spot. I don't necessarily think that their playoff hopes all rest on Joonas Korpisalo. I do think that a good Joonas Korpisalo and a bad Joonas Korpisalo is going to be the difference with this team, in terms of how the end of the season goes. The Blue Jackets are really good at doing the be average most of the season and then turn it on the last 6 weeks, go on a ridiculous run streak, not make the playoffs, but also ruin a bunch of playoff hopes for other teams and also ruin their own draft position. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again, especially in light of how long Merzlikins could be out. It's a fluid situation. The Blue Jackets are kind of lucky in that they have a light schedule this week. They don't play again until Saturday, I believe, where Friday or Saturday, Winnipeg comes to town, and then they fly to Winnipeg, I believe. I don't remember what the schedule is off the top of my head. I know they play Winnipeg at the weekend. So that gives Merzlikins, another couple of days to recover. Maybe he'll be back. I don't necessarily think that this is something that there's no point rushing him back at this point, because what are they rushing him back for? To play the last 20 games of the season? I would rather have them just be like, okay, well, come back when you're 100%, because if you aggravate the injury, make it worse, I feel like that's where a lot of the off-season surgeries come from is players get injured about this point in the season. They rush back to make the end of the season to make the playoffs, and then in the off-season they're like, "Yeah, no, my knee was held together with like duct tape and chicken wire." So there's nothing to rush Merzlikins back for. I wouldn't be surprised to see him out for a little while longer. I know he's incredibly competitive and wants to play rather than not, but at this point, like what are you rushing him back for? Honestly, and I think the whole kind of summary of this is there isn't really an easy solution to the Blue Jackets goaltending woes right now. I think they just kind of have to hold on and hope. Maybe Korpisalo gets better. The more he plays, the more likely it is that he will get better. But I don't think the Blue Jackets should be putting all of their hopes on Joonas Korpisalo rediscovering the All-Star level performance that he had at the first half of his first season as a starter. So that's it, and it sucks. And I like Joonas Korpisalo, but unfortunately, like it's a business at the end of the day. And I think if he doesn't pick his game up, then he could. I don't think we see him in a Blue Jackets jersey next season. I just don't. Whether that means he walks in free agency, whether that means that they trade him after the season is done, or whatever. But I do not see him having a future with this organization for better or worse. And that's kind of all I've got for you today. It's kind of all doom and gloom at the minute. Hopefully, we'll have some better news to talk about tomorrow. But I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find this podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And thank you once again for making this your first listen of the day. I super appreciate it. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. Make your second listen of the day Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingston are going to help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It is free and available wherever you get Locked On Blue Jackets, in fact. So make sure you check those guys out. They're doing really great work over there. It's a lot of fun. And if you, like me, are not very good at fantasy hockey, then they can help you get better. But that's all for me today. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.